The golden chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel's ballroom. Isabella Martinez adjusted her elegant emerald gown one final time before stepping into the spotlight. As the youngest recipient ever of the International Humanitarian Award, she should have felt triumphant. Instead, her heart carried the weight of a memory that had changed everything. 3 years earlier, Isabella had been just another wealthy heiress living in her Manhattan penthouse. Her days filled with charity galas where writing checks felt like the extent of human compassion. Her father's tech empire had built walls of privilege around her, and she wore her diamond jewelry like armor against the world's harsh realities. The transformation began with a single phone call that shattered her gilded existence. "Miss Martinez, there's been an incident." Her assistant's trembling voice had said, "Your private jet. It's missing over the Himalayas." Isabella had been scheduled to be on that flight to a business meeting in Singapore. A last-minute headache had saved her life, but her closest friend, Elena, had taken her place. The search and rescue mission became a nightmare of bureaucratic red tape and international complications. Days turned into weeks with no answers, no hope, and no body recovered. Consumed by guilt and desperate for closure, Isabella made an impulsive decision that would redefine her existence. Against her father's furious protests, she liquidated half her trust fund and flew to Nepal, determined to fund her own search mission. What she found in the remote mountain village of Langtang changed her forever. The village had been devastated by the same storm that had claimed Elena's life. Homes reduced to rubble, families torn apart, children orphaned. The international media had focused on the missing luxury aircraft, but no one spoke of the dozens of local lives lost in the same disaster. Isabella arrived wearing her designer boots and carrying her Louis Vuitton luggage, expecting to hire guides and return home within days. Instead, she found herself face to face with Pemba, a 9-year-old boy whose parents had died in the avalanche. He sat alone outside the ruins of his home, his clothes torn and his eyes holding a depth of loss that no child should ever know. "You look like a princess from the stories my mother used to tell," Pemba said in broken English, his small hand reaching out to touch her silk scarf. "Are you here to bring magic back to our village?" In that moment, Isabella's heart cracked open. She knelt in the mud, her $1,000 dress forgotten, and pulled the boy into her arms. The wall between her privileged world and human suffering crumbled completely. What began as a 5-day rescue mission became a 5-month commitment to rebuilding the village. Isabella sold her jewelry piece by piece, each diamond and ruby transformed into food, medicine, and construction materials. She learned to carry water buckets to comfort grieving mothers, to teach children English using picture books she ordered from Kathmandu. The media eventually caught wind of the Manhattan heiress building homes in the Himalayas. Reporters arrived expecting a publicity stunt, but found something extraordinary instead. They discovered Isabella with calloused hands and sun-weathered skin, speaking fluent Nepali and treating altitude sickness with traditional remedies she'd learned from village elders. "Why are you really here?" asked Sarah Chen, a CNN correspondent who trekked 3 days to reach the village. Isabella paused from mixing cement, her once manicured nails now permanently stained with mountain clay. "I came looking for my friend, but I found my purpose. Elena always said I had too much money and too little heart." She was right. The breakthrough came when Isabella discovered that Pemba had a rare gift for mathematics. Despite having no formal education, he could solve complex problems in his head, and had been teaching other village children using stones and sticks. Isabella realized that her privilege could become a bridge rather than a barrier. She established the Elena Foundation, not just to rebuild homes, but to create opportunities. She brought in volunteer teachers, set up solar-powered computer labs, and created scholarship programs that would send promising village children to universities around the world. But more importantly, she made Langtang her permanent home. The villagers initially viewed her with suspicion, seeing another wealthy outsider playing at charity. But Isabella's commitment ran deeper than anyone expected. When violent storms threatened the new school she'd built, she spent 3 days hauling sandbags in freezing rain. When a child fell critically ill, she carried him on her back for 8 hours through treacherous mountain paths to reach the nearest hospital. Pemba became her unofficial little brother, and through his eyes, she learned to see wealth not as a burden or a privilege, but as a responsibility. He taught her that kindness wasn't about the size of the donation, but the depth of the connection. "Sister Isabella," he said one evening as they watched the sunset paint the mountains gold, "you came here with expensive things, but no happiness. Now you have simple things, but much joy. This is the real magic." The true test came during her second year in the village, when a massive earthquake struck the region. International aid was slow to arrive in remote Langtang, but Isabella had built something more valuable than infrastructure. She had built trust and community bonds that transcended cultural barriers. Working alongside villagers who now considered her family, Isabella coordinated rescue efforts that saved dozens of lives. Her penthouse connections became lifelines, as she convinced her father's business network to donate emergency supplies and expertise. The spoiled heiress, who once threw tantrums over lukewarm champagne, now negotiated with government officials in 3 languages and performed first aid with steady hands. The village's recovery became a model for disaster resilience, attracting development experts from around the world. But Isabella remained focused on the individuals behind the statistics. She celebrated when Pemba earned a scholarship to study engineering in Kathmandu, and she grieved with families still rebuilding their lives. Years passed, and Isabella's story spread across social media platforms, inspiring a global movement. Kindness crosses borders became more than a hashtag. It became a call to action. Young people from wealthy families began questioning their own purposes, and grassroots organizations sprouted in villages across Nepal and beyond. The transformation wasn't just external. Isabella's relationship with her father, initially strained by her reckless decisions, evolved into mutual respect. When he visited Langtang for the first time, he saw his daughter not as the pampered child he'd raised, but as a leader who had found her authentic self through service to others. "I built an empire to give you everything," he told her, watching her teach a group of children under the prayer flags. "But you found everything by giving yourself away." Standing now in the Grand Metropolitan Hotel's ballroom, Isabella fingered the simple prayer beads that had replaced her diamond bracelet. The award was beautiful, but it paled in comparison to the text message she'd received that morning from Pemba, now a successful engineer. "Sister, I'm designing clean water systems for remote villages. You taught me that crossing borders isn't about travel. It's about crossing the borders in our hearts." As Isabella accepted her award, she spoke not of her accomplishments, but of the village that had saved her soul. She announced that the $100,000 prize would fund a new program connecting privileged youth with communities in need, creating bridges of understanding across cultural and economic divides. "Kindness isn't charity," Isabella concluded, her voice carrying across the elegant ballroom to millions watching online. "It's recognition that we are all connected by invisible threads of humanity. When we serve others, we don't lose ourselves. We find who we were always meant to become." The applause was thunderous, but Isabella's mind was already on her flight back to Langtang, back to the mountain village, where a 9-year-old boy had taught her that true glamour comes not from what you wear, but from how deeply you care. In the audience, a young tech billionaire wiped away tears and quietly began Googling volunteer opportunities in remote communities. The ripple effect of kindness that crosses borders had claimed another heart, and Elena's legacy lived on in ways she could never have imagined. Like and subscribe for more videos.